I made $100,000 a month from my parents' basement when I first started in business. And it was in this very room back in 2021 that happened before I actually ended up moving out. At the time, I was 22 years old, and I built this office in the basement of my parents' home in 2019, 2018. Yeah, it was 2018 when I built it. And this is where I got my first sale. This is where I started 7 dropshipping stores and failed all of them. This is where I started multiple Instagram pages. This is where I planned the whole thing on these whiteboards. This is where I started the whiteboarding. You know, if you watch any of my other channels, you watch my business channel or you watch my personal channel, I'm always pulling up the whiteboard. No matter where I go, travel to, if I Airbnb a place for like a month or two, I'm getting a whiteboard and I'm making videos on it or I'm drawing things out on it. I need the whiteboard. And I think it started here. Also, elephant in the room, what is the inventory behind me? By the way, this is sick. This is sick. You can't quite tell, but it's like a Mickey Mouse that says winner's circle that's snorting lines of Coke that say win at all costs. It's probably backwards for you guys. You get the idea. This is actually a clothing brand that I started. It's DRVN. If you go to @DRVN on Instagram, I own that 4-letter @ it's a clothing brand I started and held the inventory here. This is back in 2022, so I was in Miami at the time. That's where I was living. And I started the brand and I held the inventory here, and then we sort of launched. We made some sales, but I ended up splitting my agency at the time, and that just kind of like threw me for a loop, and now the inventory's kind of been sitting here. So it's probably something that I'll bring back this summer, actually, summer 2025. Regardless, and look, you can even see there's tons of inventory. If I go out here where I have a little gym that I built, you can see there's a whole other bunch of shelves out there, like tons of inventory. And so, anyway, that's just like one of the failure points. You know, as an entrepreneur, you try a lot of different stuff and you fail. And so when I tell my story quickly to people, they're like, oh, so you started Instagram pages and then they just started working and then you started your agency and you made a bunch of money, 100K a month, and you moved to Miami. And like on paper, that's what it sounds like and that's what you probably hear. But the reality of that is before I got the Instagram pages going, I built this office because one, I was like, all right, I came back from college, I'm living at home, making a little bit of money from car sales. Let's build an office at my parents' house. I don't have my own space yet, but let's make a little bit of space. We had like a finished basement, and so I said, hey, Dad, can I have this section? And my parents were supportive of me, and they believed in the mission, and they were like, sure, let's do it. And so I funded it, I paid for it, and put the floors in. I'm actually quite handy. You know, I make internet money, but I'm quite handy. You know, put this door in, the whole thing. Now, that time, right after that is when I started the LLC officially. I thought I needed to have an LLC. You gotta have an LLC. You know, you see people talk about this all the time. You don't need that. You should go make money first. But regardless, you know, I was stupid. I thought that's what it meant to be a business owner. You start the business, whatever. I start running all these stores. April 12th, 2018. I think that's the date. It's around there. That's when I made my first sale. And from there, I kept trying different dropshipping stores. It wasn't really working. I was maybe break even, you know, after ad costs and cost of goods sold and everything. I was making a little bit of sales here and there, but nothing crazy. I tried the Instagram pages. And from this desk, right here, this thing that I bought at probably Target, I put together, that's where the first sale. That's where the first, Instagram page came from. That's where the first followers came from. This is where I was working when I hit my first 100K followers in 4 months. This is where I was working when I discovered IGTV and Reels and that whole thing. And like started to go deep down that rabbit hole. And this is 2019, 2020. This is where I was in the middle of the Corona shutdown, lockdown, whole scam. Trying to make money. And this is where I remember, I think it was like 140K or something like that we made for a client during that time. I think it was in like April 2020. And that's when in my mind I was like, this is real. Like, if we can get this guy that, why can't I personally get myself that level of income, that level of money? You know, I think in many ways, the steadiness of the situation, like being here in this little office I have with all my inventory, was really good for allowing me to get up and running, because I didn't have to worry about surviving. I didn't have to worry about rent costs and living and that whole thing. I just had to worry about building something and making some money. And that's what I was doing at the time. I was super efficient. I was super lean. And I was just growing the company with my business partner. And we were just running it up. And this is 2020. Then 2021 rolls around. We get a couple more deals signed. Things are looking good. April 2021, because we'd grown, or I had grown my pages, and the company, the agency that I was running, marketing agency, where we, grew people's Instagram, social media pages, and then took a percent of their sales, was growing massively at the time. We were signing so many clients and getting so many new deals. We reached 100K a month, and I was still here. I still found myself at this very desk that still exists in 2025. I have this folding table up here. I got all this stuff over here you can't see. This is all like packaging stuff for the clothing brand. This is the spot. This is the moment. Now, from there, I was like, okay, I'm gonna move, and I did that whole thing. But what would have happened if I moved prior to actually, quote unquote, achieving it? Like, I achieved the things. I unlocked what I was trying to unlock from business here. I did it here. I didn't have to go to California, LA, or New York City, or Miami to achieve some goal or dream. I did it right here in the childhood home I grew up in, and with the office that I built in my parents' basement. I achieved 100K a month. So if you get anything out of this video, take away at bare minimum that it doesn't matter where you are in proximity, location, where you are in life. If you have that internal drive, tenacity, willingness to grow your company or accomplish something, you can do it from wherever. It might be a little bit shitty to do it from this spot right here. Like, I'm visiting and it's fine and it's cool. I don't necessarily mind the hometown because I'm working all the time anyway. I'm on my laptop, I'm on my phone working all the time anyway. As long as I get some sun, eat some good food, see people that I care about and like, such as my family, that's all that matters to me, and get shit done. But there's obviously something to be said for, this is a different scene than being on the beach every morning. Like, you're obviously going to feel better and be happier on the beach. The major point there, though, is even if you aren't on the beach, you should be able to do it. You should be able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, even if you're not on the beach. Multiple dropshipping stores failed. Multiple Instagram pages failed. Even after I achieved 100K a month, I built this clothing brand, right, which we didn't really get off the ground or launch. Technically, it's a failure because the inventory is sitting here and it's not being worn by people, and in their own lives. Maybe I'll sell it. I probably will sell it. But you get the idea. Technically, that's a failure. Technically, I started a bunch of different info product companies along the way, partnering with people, things like that, and they failed. There's probably, for the 5 major business wins that I've had, I've probably had 20 or 30 attempts that failed, and a lot of them happened right here because this is my laboratory. This is my tinkering center. Like I said, I had the whiteboard right over here. Man, I was drawing on this all the time. I actually had the desk over here in front of me, so this was open. I'd be standing here drawing, planning things out, just scheming things up all the time, every single day. And it didn't matter. I didn't need the inspiration of a New York City or a Miami. All that inspiration, it existed in my brain. It existed in the vision that I was trying to create. And the vision I was trying to create was let me get some money. And at first I only cared about 5 or 10K a month. Then I cared about 20. I cared about 50. Then I was like, I need to be at 100. I remember vividly, it was during the Corona lockdown. I was out back on the deck, hanging by the pool with my dad. It was the summer, sun was out, and I was like, I think we can hit 100 a month. Like, I think that's possible. Because we got these couple clients that just did it. Like, whoa, wait a minute. I think I can do this. And then probably 9 months later, it happened. It clicked in, and it became reality where I did it. And I didn't have any expenses. I didn't have any fancy things going on. I just had the work. I had the work. I had the routine. I had the setup. I had this environment that allowed me to cultivate this internal drive and spirit and obsession for getting that money. Getting after what I'm supposed to get after. And that was every single day. And it's still every single day. Now it's just from different places. You know, I've been in California. I lived in Miami for a while. I was over in Spain for a bit. I was around New York City for a little bit. Now I'm visiting here. Now I'm about to go back to Miami. All different places. And I can do it because of the work that I did right here. I can do it because I achieved that level of freedom of I can work from my phone. I can work from my laptop. I don't have to be in a specific location at any given moment, any given time, because I have a team that works for me, and I don't have offices, and I don't have a job that I have to drive into. No, my office is Slack. My office is Discord. My office is the internet and social media, and videos like this are part of that. These videos are part of my job right now, where I talk about the background, I talk about the documentation, and it's super cool to reflect that it all started from this room right here, where we got all the inventory stacked up for the non-existent brand, or the somewhat existent brand. So, like I said, if there's anything you take away from this, realize that it's possible no matter where you are. I'm an example of that, and it's really good to reflect back on where you came from, sit in those places, remember the energy, bring some of it back. I actually think, I'll tell you this, I was a harder worker when I was here than when I went and moved to Miami. Because when I went and moved to Miami, it made me feel like I made it, and I was young, 22 years old, and I had never really experienced anything before. And so I just got caught up wasting a bunch of my time. And now that I'm removed from that situation, reflected, it's like, oh, I was a way harder worker when I sat here. And so now when I go to a new fancy high-end place like California, I don't get distracted. I just keep working. When I go back to Miami, I don't get distracted. I just keep working. It just is what it is. So if you are in a place where you don't like it, you don't like the environment, you're not sure what to do, where to go, whatever, all that I encourage you to do is start trying shit. A lot of that stuff's going to fail. Many of those things, though, can work. It just depends how much you dedicate to them. Like, I dedicated every single day for 3 years in a row to go from 0 to 100K a month within 3 years in this very moment. It doesn't matter where you are. You could live in Section 8 housing. You could live at your parents' house. You could live in the shittiest country ever. If you have internet access, if you have a will to acquire power and resources and assets and money, and a drive and obsession that just doesn't stop, it can happen. And it's exactly what happened for me. And before I ever did anything fancy, bought anything stupid, I made 100K a month from my parents' basement, this room right here. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.